Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad. This is my channel Adamant Orange. Welcome to the review video for the MU Starscream build that I've been working on for the past, two and a half weeks now. This has been a fantastic build. It's a rather large model. I'm kind of afraid to put it down because it took me a while to get all the pieces back on it and find a good grip spot to hold it. And just in case, having this thing beside my head is not an indication enough of how large this model is. I have a Metal Earth Transformers model here. We have Megatron from the Metal Earth lineup to compare it to. What a huge size difference we have right here. There's a fantastic model. It's come together easier than previous MU Transformer models that I've done. This is my fourth MU Transformers model. The last one I did was Bumblebee, and it had 3 magnets in the kit because the 2 body sections came together separately. The magnets hold it together, which is a bit weird, and it mostly works. Then it had a little radio that you can place anywhere that is magnetized on, like its hip or knee or whatever, which was neat. But this one really takes advantage of having magnets because you have so many parts that easily slip on and off, and parts that clip on but then have magnets to help support them. The gun comes off, for instance. Now they both hook into place. There's 2 sections to the gun. They both hook into place. The top one has a magnet to help hold it, so it's takes a little bit of working to actually get it off. Unfortunately, the bottom piece is much more flimsy. There's no magnet holding it on, and honestly, if you even tilt it back too far, it can come unhooked on its own. The shoulder pieces, which the end of it, it says to put the shoulder pieces and crown piece on to make it the crowned king. So I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched Transformers, and I don't know how important those are. But we'll just go ahead and take those off. They're fairly well held on. There's little magnets behind these circle pieces on the front and back of the shoulder. Crown itself has a magnet inside of it, though it's kind of held a little way away from the head, so it's not very strong. It's weird how that works. The face is actually removable, and I have 2 faces. I'm currently not exactly sure where one of the faces is. I lost it, then I found it, and now I'm not really sure where I put it. It's also held on somewhat loosely. If the thing was to fall over, the face would probably go flying. One of the hands, one of the fists, is replaceable, so we can go from this pointed fist, and that's held on pretty securely, to just a fist, and there's just 2 little slots to kind of guide it in. They don't really hook, they just kind of basically keep it from getting knocked sideways, and poof, there you go. These guns do not come off, they're permanently on there. These side wing pieces clip on and off. You just slide it up and it pops right off. There are magnets assisting them from sliding up, though the assistance is limited. The other big thing is, and I'm about to knock it off by mistake, is this big wing piece in the back comes off, and that is impressive just on its own. And these 2 square bits slide into 2 holes, and inside of these holes are magnets. You can kind of see little slots where the tabs bend up, so that just, you line it up with the holes and there it goes. That's on really securely. So the side pieces are on fairly securely. The fist is on very securely. The top of the gun is secure, the bottom not so much. The face, the crown could fall off easily. The shoulder pads are okay. They hold on pretty good. One of them holds on better than the other. One doesn't have a slot here, and it sits on top of the raised arm with the gun on it. The other one has a little extra divot inside and sits over there. That one, if you don't set it just right, easily flips over. Overall, really fantastic, and just an amazing model. I like all the extra pieces and details. I don't think I care too much for the 80 shoulder pads and the crown, but I do love that wing piece on the back. I love these wing bits down here. It's neat that they come off, but the fist is neat that it's interchangeable. This one is not, but it has the gun on it. It's neat. They did some really neat things with the magnets and the interchangeable stuff here, and lots of fantastic detail. I just finished one of the things I didn't do in the video is fold in these little fins right here. Didn't even think about that until someone commented on my video. I think Jay commented and asked if I was going to do that, and I was like, you know, it completely slipped my mind that that was a thing that I can do. So I did that real quick. Used the tip of some tweezers. I think I bent them in a little more than I meant to, but that was because you can carefully do 2 or 3. And all your hands slip, so now they've all need to be bent in that far. I keep going on about this, and really if I'm going to review it, I should talk a little bit more about the build. So give me a moment to carefully set things down. This MU Transformers model is very much like the other MU Transformers. You get basically a booklet that you go through. The outside is colored, but the inside not so much. This one's all grayscale, though 1 or 2 of them have had orange shaded sections in it to kind of help identify a non-colored or non-engraved side versus the colored engraved side that's supposed to be facing out. In this particular instructions, there is some gray coloring to kind of indicate the back, but they do label things face or F for front. I think there's and a B for back, so it is a little more clearly labeled. These instructions seem to be an improvement over some of the previous models. Now the first MU Transformers model that I did, not the first one actually, the first one I did was Megatron, but then I went back and did Optimus Prime, which we have right here. Poor Optimus Prime is trying to fall apart because he fell over and a couple of seams broke. The thing about Optimus Prime, it was an earlier model, and there's a lot of the ways that they designed the bits and pieces to fold was, in my mind, questionable, and didn't always make the best connections. There were difficult connections to make, difficult folds to make, and while Optimus Prime looks really cool and amazing, it's a particularly delicate model for its size, and of the Transformers models that I have is the one that's taken damage easily and has one leg that's broke completely off. The other one is partially broke, although I think picking it up just then broke the other seam. So there's magnets stuffed up in his leg pieces helping to hold them together, and one of his arms is dangling by one seam because a tab snapped off. Because anytime he falls over, and he's tall, and it sometimes happens unfortunately, he breaks easily. Optimus Prime was a frustrating build because there were just things about the assembly and the way it comes together were just very difficult and challenging. Now I did Optimus Prime after Megatron, and forgive me, I'm going to try not to get my names mixed up here, but I keep wanting to call everything Megatron. But Megatron was the first one I did, and it come together rather cleverly, though there were some difficult parts in it as well, and some things that were just kind of weak. With Starscream, it's a solidly built model. The only complaint that I have is it keeps wanting to do the splits a little bit, just because of the way the legs, I mean, it's a big model sitting on top of 2 legs that are spread apart, so if you sit it on a slick surface, it's going to want to kind of spread open a little bit, though it does seem to be fairly securely attached. There's, I think, 4 tabs in each leg holding it onto the base piece, so while it spreads its legs a little bit when you put it on a slick surface, it does overall seem to be pretty sturdy. I'm not too worried about it falling apart and breaking easily like other models. I do worry a little that some of the loosely magnetized bits might go flying and it'd be difficult to find if it tips over. And I am of course going to try not to knock him over. But it's easy to tell, having done 4 different models at this point, how much better designed this model is. Not just in the fact that it's much more sturdy and has much more sturdy connections, but it's easier to put together. A lot of the ways things are designed to assemble just come together easily. And from the start, it was a straightforward model. The instructions are easy to follow. The parts are easy to put together. I did have some challenging bits and pieces, but nothing that severe. I think the most difficult part of this build was assembling the crown, which was towards the end. This crown thing, those different spiky bits were just challenging to get the tabs lined up on the side, and some of the flaps were flapped around, and that was the most challenging part. It wasn't a big deal, and it came towards the end. This model came together so cleanly and easily. And like, I started off in part 1 with doing one of the legs. I believe it was the left leg. No, honestly can't remember which leg I started with. In part 1 I started with one of the legs. They're very similar. There's not really anything distinguishing one from the other, other than the fact that they're mirror images of each other. Starting off the leg, you have a lot of angled corners. It's not just a straight 90 degrees. Most, if not all, of the 90-ish degree sides actually have two folds in them. So you have partial folds, and then the rest of the fold, like the legs, are a big standout. Now the legs had this long seam bit, which was a little challenging to get into place, but overall not that difficult. So many parts of the arms and legs, the 90-degree side bends are actually two different folds, combination folds to put together. Not that hard to figure out and not that hard to deal with. I did have a little bit of an issue or misunderstanding in how the magnets come together in the first leg. If we take this off, this little wing piece on the leg that goes on the side, there's a circular bit that has a magnet under it. The magnet is actually inside the piece, and this circular section just has really long tabs. It took me 2 or 3 tries to get it. At first I thought that the magnet went under this circular piece and that went on top of the rest of the part. The magnet was kind of sandwiched in between. But then I went to assemble the part and I couldn't slide it down into place. So you notice the tabs have like a slide down locking type setup. The magnet goes inside. You can't really easily see the magnets down inside. This piece just has 3 extra long tabs that wrap around that magnet. You probably don't even have to wrap them around it. The magnet will kind of hold itself in place, but I went ahead and bent the ends over just to give it a little extra security. But there's several bits. Each leg, the side piece has this circle that you put the circle piece on, you put the magnet in the tabs inside the part and secure them down. There's shoulder pieces that have the same magnet. You can see the circles here on each shoulder. There's also one on the back that have those circles hidden underneath. There is a circular part in the hand that acts the same way, that holds the gun on. There's several different examples where the small magnet is held on by tabs from a part that's put on top. The magnet is not sandwiched between but underneath. It took me a little bit to figure that out, and that stumbled me a little bit. So if you do this model, don't sandwich the magnet, put it inside the part and use the tabs of the circular part to hold it down. One thing I should note is with this model, the instructions do not indicate whether to fold or twist tabs. They leave it for you to figure out. And I say, one of the things I say when it comes to building these models, you want, the MU Transformers models, you want some experience under your belt before you get into them, just in part because you need to know what each situation, when you should fold or twist tabs. And everybody has kind of their own opinion about which is good for which situation, but a lot of times twisted tabs are more secure, folded tabs just look cleaner. And a lot of the inner tabs on this model, I just twisted and it works fine. And you just kind of need to know when to do that, when not to do that. There were situations later in the model where, especially in the arms, where we have these little joint pieces that have a lot of thin areas that fold up with parts on top. The inside tabs on that, you have to fold over rather than twist, because then you won't have room to close the part up properly. But in the legs, there's plenty of room. Most everything inside was twisted. Outside tabs were folded over for a cleaner look. Really easy to figure out. Now I did part 1 ended up being split into 2 parts because it took longer to build the leg than I expected. Part 2, gaining the experience that I had with part 1, I did it faster. Part 3, I did the torso section, which wasn't very long. Basically this lower section here under the cockpit area. Pretty simple to fold and build and put together, and then the legs attached to that. Another thing I wanted to comment on is with this model, a lot of the connection pieces have offset tabs or different size tabs so that you can't put things on backwards, or at least it really lowers your ability to put things on backwards or incorrectly. You can still fold things inside out and put them on wrong, and I did that in one section. Can't remember which one, but it was easy to know I did it wrong and correct it. But a lot of, say, 2 different arm sections that come together, if they need to come together a certain way, the tabs will be offset so that you can't put them on upside down. That's true in most situations, though there are a couple of areas where that's not quite true and you can potentially put things on backwards. think the first instance that I ran into was in part 3 when I was putting that body section together, or that lower abdomen, like hip area together. Little plate that goes on the bottom of the lower torso that allows you to attach the legs could be put on a couple of different ways. For one, you want the colored side to be facing down, the silver side to be inside. But even that, you can put it this way or that way, and it'll allow you to attach it. But then the legs are going to, if you put it the wrong way, the legs are going to be facing backwards. If you look at the tops of each legs, the tabs are, I think the front side has 2 tabs and each side has 1 tab, and the back side of the leg has no tabs up top. So you want to look, when you're putting that part on, you want to have they're kind of angled squares, but you want the sides with the tabs facing towards the front. And there is a section on the body that's labeled F and a section that's labeled B, front and back. You want those, the majority of the tabs where the legs connect, to be facing towards or leaning towards the F front side of it in the back. So you want to make sure that that's lined up, because that's one part, I think it's part C10. That bottom plate can be put on backwards if you're not careful, so watch out for that. Now in parts 4 and 5, we moved into the building of the 2 arms. Things got a little bit more complicated there. That's where I started running into areas like with these elbow sections, where they're really complex pieces, and it's really cool how it comes together and how they layer stuff. But there's times where you have to fold tabs over rather than twist them so that things fit. I mentioned that already. There's even a few tabs in here that are really wide, so I don't even know if you could twist them. Folding them over is the best way to go. This arm was pretty straightforward. Build the arm, then you build the gun piece. So you build 2 different fists again because they're interchangeable. Fingers are a little fiddly, but not that hard to figure out. The fingers are some things that you can accidentally get on backwards, but pay attention to the fact that part of the finger is longer than the other, and you should be able to get those on correctly. Then we move to the other arm. The other arm is a little bit more complicated because you have the gun. You have this gun piece on the shoulder, but then you also have the gun in the hand. Another thing about the arms is you run into more situations where tabs are trying to go into angled slots, and a lot of times I ended up putting like a little bit of a curve in the end of each tab so it would kind of hook and slide into those slots. There were some instances where building sections of the arm sections where I would temporarily twist a tab to hold things together until more of it was put together. I think that was more for the inner piece, part of the body. Funny thing about the arms on this, when you build the arms, you're also building this tall section of the body as well. So you're doing the arm and part of the upper body for this side, and then this arm and part of the upper body for that side. And this section, I think this top section, there's a couple of times where I had to do the temporarily twisted tabs, get more of it together, and then turn around and untwist and fold the tabs over. I remember sections of this where I had to do that because of the way some of the stuff slides on this long back piece that goes on here. This long section that goes down has 2 tabs that go into long slots, and you put those in, and then this whole piece slides down, and there's like 5, 6, 7 tabs you have to line up. It's a bit cumbersome, but definitely doable. But I like that they left the slots on the other side wide, so you can put those in and then slide the parts, the rest of the tabs, into place rather than trying to fight at an angle to get all of those tabs lined up. That would have been extremely challenging, and I probably wouldn't have gotten all the tabs in had they not had that slot where you could, extra long slot where you could slide it. Interesting little bit, I think it was a shoulder piece, I think it was C16. There was one, because this comes at an angle, there's one piece you put in at an angle, and that part you can accidentally fold inside out and things won't line up right. But they have an engraving above and below where the slots, where the part connects, and you make sure those engravings are facing outward when you fold the part, and things will come together correctly. And there's a mild indication to do that, but it's not explained. Fortunately, I caught it. Otherwise, this arm may end up facing the other way or something. I'm not sure what would happen if I did it wrong, because fortunately I did it right. Should also mention one of the things about this model, unlike say Metal Earth, is you don't put things in order of parts. It's not part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. The part numbers are all over the place, and you'll put all kinds of parts from all kinds of different sheets, and each sheet has its own numbering system, so you definitely have to go look for part 1 on sheet C, because part D has a sheet, or sheet D has a part 1, sheet A has a part 1, sheet B has a part 1, and they're all different parts. So they don't go in order. Should point to that out as well. And when it comes time to do the center of body section, there isn't that much of it left because you've already done the red outer parts. You just need to kind of do the white and gold inner part. I was a little intimidated by getting the folds on this canopy bit correctly, but it's a lot simpler than it looks. There's 3 different sections, gold and 2 silver sections. The gold sections, they don't need tapered tools to fold that. You just fold it over a dowel rod or something and it ends up working out. The way they did the angles isn't that it's not a tapered fold, it's a straight fold but just placed at an angle. I do like how the center cabin cockpit area sits inside the larger white area, and you don't have to connect tabs around the edge of it. There's a base underneath here that just plugs into the back, and you twist the tabs on the back and you're done. I love that design. It's so much simpler than trying to fight with tabs around the seam and getting those lined up and into place. I love that they went the way they did. It was a bit comical doing the center part because you have the magnets back here, and as you're working on it initially, the front and back piece are kind of floppy and they kept sticking together, and I kept having to pry them apart because of the magnets and get more parts in and get to the tabs. So it was a little comical working with that. Even trying to place some of the magnets in some of these places, like the shoulders and body, because you're trying to get the magnet in its place, but then it gets too close to another part and goes off course. A little bit amusing right there, but certainly not impossible. I've already commented about the face. Behind the face there's a magnet inside of the head that allows the face to be interchangeable. Now the face is just a plate that's got the edges folded over and some tabs behind it, so it's not sitting flat against that magnet and getting the full strength of its magnetic attraction. It's kind of a space in there, so it fits somewhat loosely and is somewhat easy to pop off. It's not a terrible design, but it worries me in its weakness. The head is a little challenging to put together, not that hard. For MU Transformers models, this has definitely been the easiest face and head assembly of all of them by far. Some of the other Transformers faces were just almost impossible feeling, and I'm surprised I even managed to work it out. This one is way simpler to do. And the body itself comes together fairly quickly because there's not that much of it left by the time you get to that point. You spend half of what I'm calling part 6, the center body, attaching the arm pieces and then attaching the leg pieces and just putting it all together. And then you end up with what looks like a finished model, pretty much what I'm holding here, but then we had part 7 where we had to do all the extra bits. Mainly this big wing thing that goes on the back. Fantastic looking, not that hard to work out. Again, it's fairly simple bends and folds. Attaching some of the upper parts, you build each wing piece separately, and these 2 bits add on, and I put one of these on backwards to the wing section, put this on to this backwards. Had to fix it. Kept trying to close things up too soon. These pieces right here, once you get the wing assembled, the last thing you do when you're doing just the outer parts, you do the inner part first, then you do the outer parts, and then the outer parts attached to the inner. So when you're done with this wing, don't close this section up like I did. Leave it open until it's time to attach it to the center part, then close it. I didn't do that. Got ahead of myself, but really not that hard. You assemble this, you assemble the crown, which was a little challenging. The 2 shoulder pieces, they go on each shoulder. That's part 7. That's the last little bit. You don't even necessarily have to do this. It's more bits to add to it, and it certainly adds to the look of the model. The shoulder pieces are 2 parts with some folds that go together. Pretty simple and straightforward to do. Again, you don't have to do them if you don't want to. I'm certainly did because they're in there, and I mean, I'm making a video about how to do it, so I'm going to show how to do it in my build videos. So I definitely built them. I may or may not put the crown and shoulder pads on. I may just kind of put them away somewhere and display him as he is. I don't know. Then again, I may put it all on there because it's in the kit. Why not show it all off? It took me just under 18 hours to put this thing together, which I think is possibly the shortest time of any of the MU Transformers models. I do remember Megatron took like 24 hours. Optimus Prime took close to that. Don't remember how long Bumblebee took. Maybe around 16-17 hours. I have to go look it up, but It took me just under 18 hours to put this thing together, which really isn't that long. It was, of course, split up over a couple of weeks, a little bit here and a little bit there. It was a fantastic build. I mean, quite simply, it was a fantastic build. Such a huge improvement over previous MU assemblies, MU Transformer models. So much fantastic detail, interchangeable parts, a pretty good use of the magnets, really good instructions. There's just so many things about MU's models that has improved in at least the Transformer line. Really haven't built any other MU models, but I hear it's very much the same. They've come a long way with how things come together. This one is pretty well designed. The assembly steps are pretty well assembled. The instructions are well done. The model is very sturdy. It's a very colorful model. The red paint does scratch rather easily, so be careful of that. It really doesn't take much. But it was just so much fun to put together, and so fantastic to look at. Just the wings on the back are just, wow, blows me away how big they are. I'm really impressed by this model, and it's a fantastic build, and I'm so happy to have it, to have done it. MU's come a long way. What more can I say? If you love the first generation Transformers models, or any of the Transformers models, this one's an excellent one to pick up. Even if you aren't a seasoned builder, if you only got a few builds under your belt, this might not be such a bad one to start with, because it is pretty clean and straightforward and easy to follow. So if you've built maybe 20 models and you want to jump into the Transformers models and you feel confident, Starscream's not a bad choice. The instructions are pretty straightforward and clear. There's lots of help out there. I've got my videos if you need help. I've got sections on videos on each section. There's lots of people out there in the community, on the Metal Earth subreddit, on different Facebook groups. You've got other resources as well, like that you can turn to for help. There's lots of people in the community that will help you out. This was not such a bad one to start with. I wouldn't start with Optimus Prime. Megatron's kind of iffy. The both of the Bumblebees, I've only done one of them. I've done the one from the movie where he's laying down. Wouldn't start with this one. Definitely some complex folds and challenges right there. I hear the other Bumblebee, the other G1 Bumblebee is challenging as well. But Starscream is pretty easy and straightforward. I hesitate to say easy. For a large model, for an MU Transformers model, it is on the easier side and very doable if you're still somewhat new to the metal building hobby. If you're very new and you're not confident, don't do it. It's an expensive model, like $40, $50, $60, depending on where you get it and how much of a sale you get it on. And you can't get replacement parts for this model, unlike, say, Metal Earth, where you can, if, you know, as long as you have it worn out, your free model replacement parts emails. You know, I'm sure there's, I don't know if there's a limit on how many replacement parts Metal Earth would send you, but I'm sure there is. But with MU, you're on your own. If you need a replacement part, you have to go buy a whole nother model, and that's another $50, $60 right there. So if you're not comfortable, don't do it. But if you're feeling comfortable and you've got a few models under your skin and you have a pretty good idea of when you should twist and when you should fold the tab, Starscream's not a bad choice. It's a fantastic Transformers MU model to get into, and I would recommend it for somebody who's wanting to transition into the larger models. Starscream's a pretty good one to do that with. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go put this big thing, find a little bit of room over here by Optimus Prime and Megatron. Probably going to have to repair Optimus Prime again because I think his leg is getting loose. But this is going to look fantastic. What more can I say? I'm gonna let you go. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go find some room for this fantastic and large model and think about what I'm going to build next. I hope everyone is staying safe in these crazy times we have right now with the pandemic going around. Hope everyone's staying safe and keeping busy, and I'll see you next time. As always, thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel. This was actually a request, though, right off the top of my head. I can't remember by who. Another one to finally cross off of my list. Still have several more requests to work at. I'm not saying I don't take requests, but at this point, it's even with the extra time on my hands, it's taken me a while to get through them all. But anyway, thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.